Hey everybody, welcome back to Auto Scholar with Mr. B. I'm Mr. B, and today on Project E30, we are doing a dashboard restoration. So if you have ever restored a car from the 80s, you know that the dash materials that they used back then were awful. So most of them have cracks. Even back in the 70s and 60s when they started going with these padded dashes, they have a lot of cracks in them over years, and over the time people didn't take care of them, so they just kind of look awful. So I'm going to teach you today how to restore your dash in your E30, but this works actually for other cars as well. So if you're here and you have another vehicle and you're looking for dash restoration, you can follow the tips that I'm going to show you today to restore the dash in your car, as long as it's not too far gone. I'm going to show you a couple of things that may lead to you just saying, hey, I need to find a better dash that you can start off with, or just purchase a new dash pad altogether. So like this video if it taught you anything. Of course, subscribe to the channel for more stuff like this. And let's go over here and look at this dashboard and see what we're dealing with. Okay, so here she is. And it is rough up here, let me tell you. So we have some very deep cracks going all the way down to the frame of the dash. And it's pretty much everywhere. And this is very common for this car. You have discoloration, cracks, stains, all kinds of stuff. That one's especially deep. And so, yeah, this just looks like, you know, years ago, you wouldn't be able to do anything with this, but we are going to try to save this dash. It's important to remember, too, that most dashboards of this time had the VIN number on it, so you're going to want to remove that and put it back on top of the repair. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to remove everything you can out of the dash. And you really need to pull the dash for this. It's not that hard to do on this car, but it really leads to a better result. You don't end up with, you know, a mess inside the car. But one thing I want to show you guys, once we get these out, when the dash cracks, you can see it's a raised ridge, okay? So it raises up, and that's going to affect the way that the cover that we're going to use to fix this is going to lay. So we're going to go in there and we're going to flatten this out. We're going to fill these gaps, and then we're going to use a cover lay to go over here, and then we were going to spray the whole dash, and it's going to look as close as we can possibly get it to factory condition without spending a whole lot of money. Now, what I'm going to use is a cover lay, and I'm going to show you it here. So this is a cover lay. This is a plastic molded dash cap, and you need to look, before you restore your dash, you need to look for one of these for your dash, because they make things so much easier and so much cleaner, but they are not without their down points as well. You have to have the dash completely flat on here for this to work correctly. Also, this is, if you leave it just like this and you don't repaint the whole dash, it's going to look not like factory. And, you know, for somebody that doesn't know what these look like, that might be okay. But in the circles I run with, you know, you should be able to tell that this is a cap. I don't want to be able to tell this is a cap. So we do have one spot down here that is not going to be covered by the cover lay that we're going to have to repair. I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to attempt to repair that. It's not going to be perfect. And there's also the option that if you get this on there and you still have some imperfections and you want to cover them up, you want to, you know, to make sure that your dash looks good, you can always flock the dash. They make the flock it kits, and that might be an option. If I get this together and I don't like it, I'm just going to flock it. That's going to give it a very uniform look as well, because on these cover lays, the grain's not going to match, the color's not going to match, the sheen of the plastic is not going to match. And you can see here, two completely different colors. To me, that would bother me in this car. So I'm going to, after I get this done, I'm going to spray it and see if that helps. If not, I'll just flock the dash. So let's go ahead and get these vents out, show you what we're going to do with the ridges, and we'll get started with the work. Okay, so here is the supplies that we were going to need to put this dash cover on. The dash cover that I got was, I bought it on Amazon. It was like, I think 70 bucks or something. I'll leave the link in the description. And it takes a little bit more to put this on and have a professional result. So first thing we're going to need to fill the cracks is going to be some type of expanding foam. Now, some people use Bondo or body filler or something like that. But I use this foam. It seems to work fine. It doesn't matter what color this is. This is going to be covered up by the dash pad or painted or however you want to do it. So really not that big of a deal on the color. We're going to use a rubbing alcohol to go ahead and wipe the dash down. I got these microfiber towels. Go ahead and you want the dash very, very clean, okay? So I use alcohol. Normally it doesn't bother anything. Don't use brake fluid, brake cleaner or anything like that on the dash, because it could deteriorate the foam in the dash. Of course, we're going to need razor blades. We're going to need a sealant to stick this cover to the dash. Now, so I use this windshield and glass sealant. It's a little bit thinner. It's the clear silicone. It's a little bit thinner than the RTV. And I use this brush to brush it on. So once we get the cover on, we're going to need to clamp it. You can use binder clips like this just to clamp around the edges, just to get it for this to cure up and get everything to stick. And you definitely want to put, now this cap fits on there pretty tight, but you want to put silicone on there to keep it still. That way you don't have any squeaks or rattles in the dash area. And it just leaves a little bit better of a professional result when you're using all these products together. I also have my paint for my dash. I use this paint religiously on a lot of car pieces. If you don't have a whole lot of heat or anything, this bumper black paint, I just get black and I use it on a lot of trim, and I've used it on my personal cars, and it holds up very well in the weather. So I would imagine it would hold up here, and it has that color that I'm looking for. It's a semi-gloss black. It's not too shiny, it's not too dull, and it seems to pretty much look exactly like the factory dash that came out of this car, because the dash cover that I got is too shiny. It doesn't look real. So we're going to paint this and the other part of the dashes that aren't covered by the cover with the same color paint so they'll match. Also, I got this right here. This is just a piece of vinyl that has about the same grain on it as the vinyl that covers the original dash. So what I'm going to do on that area that is chipped lower, that the cover's not going to cover, I'm going to fill that area in, put some of this sealant on it, and then try to mold the sealant to look like that grain. And then when we paint it, hopefully it'll get a good match. I don't expect perfection, but I expect a good 10-foot, hey, that's a good looking dash look out of this. So let's go ahead and get the old dash up here and get it trimmed down to where we can fill the cracks, and then we'll put the cover on. Okay, so got the vents out. If you have an E30 on these vents, they just have these clips here. You just press down on the clips and pull them out. I went ahead and took all the duct work for the vents out, and it's important to put that back in, or formulate some type of brace if you're getting rid of your air conditioner to go back in here, because it kind of braces the dash itself, the vents itself. And you need to check and make sure that there's no big huge cracks or everything over here, because this is kind of a structural part of the dash as well. If so, you need to fill those cracks up, reinforce it somehow. So after we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and wipe the dash down with the alcohol and the microfiber cloth. Go ahead and get it real clean, and then we'll start filling. We'll start cutting the ridges out and filling the cracks. So once you got everything clean, what we're going to do is we're going to go down here and we're going to feel across the dash, and wherever there's something raised, like this raised edge right here, I'm going to take and cut this out. To make sure that it doesn't hang against the cover that we're putting in. You can also push this down a little bit and just crack it and make sure that there's no raised edge here. And there's a piece that's kind of offensive. You just cut it out, because we're going to come in, we're going to fill this area up. So right here, we're just cutting out all the higher end spots, and then we're going to fill them. So I'm just going to go down the dash and I'm going to cut out these spots that are raised up. That way the dash cover fits like it's supposed to. Okay, so before I start filling a whole lot of cracks and everything, I got the cover on here and I'm just doing some test fitting, just trying to figure out where I'm gonna need to adjust some things. And where I see here, I don't know if it's a problem with the dash or a problem with the cover. So I ain't gonna say this don't fit quite right, because it could be the dash is bent. But this area right here is not lining up correctly. So what I've been doing is, and this is something that I didn't list in the in what you need, but I've got my heat gun here, and this is an industrial one, but you could probably even use a hair dryer if it's a good one. And I've been heating this area in here, and then I take my handle of my screwdriver and I heat it up and I just roll it in there. It doesn't really mess up the grain that much, but it's just to get that to fit a little tighter. It just feels like it's too long from like here to here, because if I put this vent on right here, and I just got this here, just kind of hold it in place, but this will pop out and go over here if I line this up, and if I line this up, this will pop out and go over there. So I'm trying to get everything to where it's lined up perfectly, and that's just going to take a little bit of adjusting. So take your heat gun, hair dryer, something like that, and you're going to have to make this fit a little bit. And it's probably because the dash is bent. I don't know if it's because the cover's bent, but either way, this is the only way to fix it. So we're going to heat and kind of remold this to our dash and make sure that it fits like it's supposed to, because we don't want a sloppy fit on this. Okay, again, we're trying to make it look like this ain't ever had a crack in it. And so you're gonna have to do that test fit. I got this about where I want it, and now we're gonna go and take this back off. I'll show you how to fill the cracks. Okay, so now that we have everything test fit and it looks like everything's gonna work, we're gonna go ahead and start filling in these cracks. And I've got my tight foam here from Loctite. And I'm just going to do a test spray down here on this cardboard. Let's see here. And that didn't work too well. Just going to smear it here. What this is going to do is going to fill in the cracks, but it's also going to strengthen the dash. Stuff is not that easy to use. And once it dries, we're just going to take the razor blade and go over it anyway. May need to sand it down a little bit. Stuff is very messy. You need a rag. You can use Bondo, and honestly at this point I think it'd probably be easier. Last time I did this, the foam did not span quite as violently as this is. I'm going to stick that nozzle directly to it to get that foam all the way through. So this is what we look like here. I've got most of the large cracks filled. These small cracks and stuff really aren't going to matter. I was just worried more or less about the structural cracks here. The rest of these will be filled in with the silicone, which is going to be in the next step. And then we'll put the cover on it after that. So we're going to wait for this to dry. The can says to let it dry for an hour. And you just need to read whatever brand of foam that you're using. The whatever time it says is whatever you need to follow. Then we're going to take a razor blade and we're just going to cut along this foam, along the crack, to get it to where it will fill the crack, but it's not going to be too lumpy to where we can put the cover on. It's not going to make the cover sit weird. Okay, we've waited long enough. Now we're going to go ahead and trim this foam back. So just dig in. Get you a real sharp razor blade and We're going to cut this. It's almost like about the feel of a packing peanut when it's cured. So this is probably what packing peanuts are made out of. And we'll just trim along the lines of the dash. Careful not to cut yourself. What that's going to do is it's going to leave that flat right there. May have to kind of like chisel a little bit out. This stuff expands so kind of violently that it's a little bit hard to control. And so this is kind of one of the more time-consuming things to do in this job, but just take your time. Okay, so now we've done reinforced all this with foam. And again, we're going to have some other cracks. That's okay. They're not too big. I may fill a couple more of them in. And we've got some tough spots right here. There's really not a whole lot we can do. I'm just going to hope that I'm going to probably cut this back a little bit and hope that the cover takes care of it. But this dash was very close to being almost too far gone to do this with, so I don't know what the expectations are of your project, but if it works, it works. If not, I'll just have to find me another one and try this again. But we're going to let this set up, and then we're going to apply the silicone and fit the cap and clamp it down and let it dry. Okay, so now it's time to apply the silicone. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on some of these smaller cracks, put some of the silicone around those smaller cracks and fill those in. Also around the corners here of our little pocket. And I've got a paintbrush if I need any help smearing it around. Very important to get the edges here. The edges are going to be kind of the area where I'm going to focus on. If you're in a colder environment, it's pretty warm in the shop right now, but you definitely need to put your silicone in warm water if it's not easily flowable. Definitely get around these vents here, because that's the part that's going to lift up on you if you're not careful. I've got another tube of this, so you may want to buy 2 tubes. This stuff's kind of going quick. Don't want to glob it on, but you need to have enough to hold it down. That is for sure. Again, around the edges, very important, around all the AC vents. All right, now we need to quickly get this thing on there and get it set up. Everything pushed out. Again, we should have test fitted this already. If you get some on your hands, just wipe it off like I have here. This will be okay because we're painting this anyway. Rub it out so it doesn't affect the grain. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these lights in, the vents in, excuse me, to kind of hold it down. I'm not going to push them all the way in. And on the ends, I'm going to use these binder clips. I wouldn't use a clamp that's got too much pressure on it because you don't want to indent the plastic. Definitely not something we want to do. Again, we're just using the vents just to kind of hold it in place and hold it still. Again, if you get silicone on the outside of the dash, if you're painting it, don't worry about it. If you're not painting it, worry about it. All right. Okay, so I was having problems getting this area of the dash to pull in and to conform to the dash, the cover. So what I did was I took zip ties right here, tightened them up, and I used my heat gun around this area and heated this area up and got it to fit better. So we're going to let this dry. We're going to let all this dry overnight, then cut it loose and make sure that it's where it needs to be. Okay, so take your time with this. Again, this is something that's because it's an aftermarket fit. It's one of those things where you're just going to have to mess with it. Okay, so after we let this dry, now I recommend once you get this thing clamped down to let this thing pretty much try to dry overnight. I let mine dry for 3 weeks because we were on Christmas vacation, so it is of course dry. Go ahead and snap anything that you have off that's holding this together. And just make sure that the cover is on here securely. If you don't have this on securely and there's any movement to it at all, you're going to end up with a rattle in your car. It's going to drive you nuts. So it's important that we get everything secured before we move on to the next step. So we need to go ahead and get this off. Make sure that it's not rattly or anything else. If you have any silicone that is kind of drip down the edges or anything like that, go ahead and take care of that. You can use a razor blade just to cut the drips loose. Anything like that may cause squeaking up against the glass. And so now we have one little bad spot right here that the cover doesn't cover. And we need to take care of that before we put this all together. I'm gonna try to repair this the best I can. And really, like I said, this dash was just about too far gone. But, if you've got a dash that's in a little bit better shape than this, I would have temped this. But I'm probably gonna be shopping for a dash. This don't look too bad. This will get me riding for a little while. And so let me show you what we're gonna do with this spot here. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken this black silicone here, and I have laid down coat after coat of silicone right here where we had this crack and this little small hole here that this cover is not going to cover up. Now, if you don't have black silicone, you can use any color because, again, we're going to be painting the whole dash to give it a uniform look to make all this match all this. And this is built up. Of course, it looks ugly. So what we're going to do is we are going to take a razor blade and we are going to, you need a new one too. I would get a brand new razor blade and we are just going to follow the contour of the dash around and just remove this excess, and hopefully that will fill in this hole. If you still have a crease or a crack here after we cut it, we can just lay on more silicone, let it dry, and then recut. And I let this cure up overnight, so it's kind of cold in the shop and this stuff kind of cures. It takes a while for it to cure. So let's see here. We're going to you just want to use a sawing motion. Come through. Very easy. You don't want to get too crazy with this, because you can pull this silicone out. You find that you're hanging up on something, just try to cut it from a different angle. And make sure that this looks good through here. So let me move the camera out of the way so I can get in there a little bit easier. I'll show you the finished product here after I get this done. So there's the repair. It looks better than it did. Still, it's not great, it's not terrible. Should look better when we get it painted. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this over to our other bench and we'll get our bumper paint and we'll see what we can do with the rest of this. Okay, so what I've done is I've wiped this whole dash down, our repair and everything, with some alcohol just to get everything clean and ready for paint. This is that trim and bumper paint that I'm using here. Works really well. Shaking it up real good. Just checking the spray pattern here. And the important thing here is light coats, okay? So light coats, uniform, across the dash. Follow the contours of the dash when you're spraying. You're getting all the little nooks and crannies because you don't want. And this looks really shiny right now, but when it dries, it's going to be pretty uniform color. It's not going to be as shiny as it is. This stuff dries fairly quickly, even in this cold temperature that I'm in. You want to make sure you hit from all the angles. I'm going to go on the other side of this table here. And I normally let it dry for 10 minutes and I'll recoat. And I'm going to put probably 3 or 4 coats on here. Okay, so the paint has dried. Looks pretty good. And again, it's all about trying to make everything match. But what I've noticed is I'm going to put the vents and everything back in and give you all a final shot. But what I'm seeing here is this, at least on the corners, this is getting in the way on these little side vents from fitting in here. So we're going to need to take something, kind of trim back this liner to get this to fit properly. It's only about 1 millimeter out through here. So I think I'm going to try to find me a Dremel tool or something and just zip this this part of the liner out. That way it's going to fit the side vents in. And these vents going in here are really tight because of this extra material in here. But again, you're gonna have to play with it, work with it a little bit. Be careful if you're grabbing any part of the dash that hasn't got this cover on it. Be careful not to crack it. As you can see, it looks pretty good compared to the other part of the dash. Now this is our repair spot here. It's better than it was. However, it's, I don't know, it's not that great. I'm not too happy with it. I'm just kind of glad it's in a lower spot that won't be as noticeable. And you know, when we get everything in here, your center stack stuff, your instrument cluster, everything, I don't think you're really going to notice it until you get right up on it. But much better than what we started with. Okay, guys, so I just ran into an issue here with the dash vents. Okay, you can see here the heat gun is out. I've tried trimming and everything else, and you cannot get the vents in with this cover on. Okay, and this was not put in the instructions, and it was I haven't seen this done anywhere else where the vents are basically, you know, this cover goes over the sides of the vents as well. So that is going to be a little bit of an issue. Not so much if you know this beforehand, but now I'm going to have to go back. I had to actually peel this up. It's still stuck in up here. It's fine. I was able to work in with a heat gun and peel this up and slide the vents in. But now I'm going to have to re-glue everything down here and go from there. So just, I did not know this when I first started putting the video together. And again, sometimes you guys are learning with me, but the instructions say absolutely nothing about it. And they really don't say anything about the vents. So I was just under the impression I can pull them out. I've done a few of these on other vehicles before, and I've never had an issue like this come up. So yeah, leave your vents in. You can mask your vents off when you do the painting and everything else, but man, what a nightmare. I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing glued back together and we'll be done. Okay, so we went ahead and did the re-glue here. I've got some clamps on it just to hold that glue down. Still seems pretty solid. Again, this was just I guess an oversight on my part. Not, you know, going all the way through the test fit, but with these vents, I don't like to take them in and out too much just because the clips break on them so easy. So if you're doing this, again, I'd leave the vents in and just mask them for when you're doing your painting, and just do it that way because it's too hard to get those vents in once this is on. You could also trim out the vent areas here if you wanted to. Just trim them flat through here and it should be okay as well. But this is good enough for now for me. Again, like I said, I'm going to be looking for, you know, a cleaner dash than the one I got. This is a good daily driver style dash restoration that isn't that expensive. I think I paid less than $100 for the cover and all the glues and paints and everything to put this on. So it's a lot better than new dash prices. If you can find a flawless dash, again, they're going for $600 to $1,500 depending on condition. So again, this is about the best we could do with it. And let me go ahead and get the clamps off and I'll show you it. Go ahead and just lay it in the car and you can see how it looks like. So here is the finished product here. Show you what it looks like on the inside. Excuse the car, we are still doing some wiring and things like that. You'll see some more videos on this car here soon, but it looks okay. You know, that spot doesn't look the greatest, but other than that, pretty good. Just so, but a lot better than it was. Okay guys, so our dash restoration, of course we had a lot of issues with it, but overall I'm fairly pleased with the end result. It does look so much better than what came out of this car, and we're going to continue to put out more videos on our E30 restoration and powertrain swap here at Autoscholar Mr. B. So if you have an E30 and you're doing any of the projects, we're going to be hitting all the major projects for E30. So I've got a bumper swap planned, I've got some wiring planned, I've got engine removal, transmission removal, a lot of things planned for the E30 platform. So of course, subscribe to the channel and like any video that helps you out. Also find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, VK, and I post a lot of stuff there. Just look for Auto Scholar with Mr. B on those formats. And we'll see you next time on Auto Scholar with Mr. B.